Welcome to the Forensic Cop Podcast.
Liverpool 4, Arsenal 0. Normal business resumed.
Well, I mean, after last game, I think it was important for Liverpool to come out with a response. And I mean, I feel bad for Arsenal. They looked like real deal adjacent in the first half. But I think once they lost their confidence and that goal went in, I think it was just all over.
Speaking of Arsenal, I should mention that we have our friend Chris on the line again for this podcast. He joined us last season to preview the Anfield game between Liverpool and Arsenal. And he's joining us again to review this previous game. And it's kind of similar scoreline, same winners, same type of game. And Chris, welcome to the podcast.
I really gotta stop accepting these games when you guys are playing at Anfield because like the results just what Michael Owen say, inevitable. Like Liverpool at home's undefeatable, I guess were his words, to quote him.
Apparently Arsenal's lost 4-0 away like 10 times now, and 5 or 6 of those have been at Anfield. So
yeah, Anfield's unfortunately become one of those bogey grounds for Arsenal where they just can't seem to play out of themselves. I really honestly find, because I think what we saw in the first 20-25 minutes, even though I know it didn't scare you guys, but you guys, if you're comparing it from last season when you guys had me on to where they are now, you can kind of at least see an identity. You can see how they want to play properly going forward. I think hopefully when we look at the Emirates game or even next year when they do play at Anfield, I'm hoping that the attack will have a bit more bite and a bit more identity to it to make it a really good game besides the whole, the usual first 20 minutes. One team started off well, the other team's kind of going through the gears. But it was overall a good game. It's what I expected, honestly, from Arsenal. Liverpool, I was hoping wouldn't go off like they normally did. I was expecting, honestly, I told my brother 2-0. He's a Liverpool fan. And my shout out to him on your podcast is this. He wants Liverpool to win it this year, so that way you guys can tie United. And that way, then you guys can stop having United fans saying that they won more league titles. So that's my brother's reasoning.
I'm not sure any United fans should be talking right now.
Oh! They don't know about that yet. Oh,
history being what it is. I mean, put that aside. But I mean, wow. Mm-hmm. Like I know this isn't a Man U podcast, but damn, that was not a pretty game today.
The only thing I'll say is, can somebody please put super glue on all these hands? I just want his hands to remain on that wheel.
Oh my God, that was my thought too. I'm like, no, I don't want them to lose. I want them to actually win a few games. They keep Solskjaer as coach. But anyway, that won't happen. Anyway,
we can go off into a tangent.
What do you think we would.
No, I need to have you guys talk about United at least a little bit, because I know it's joy, because it wasn't a couple, maybe a decade ago, it was maybe the opposite. Well, United wasn't United, but Liverpool was also not Liverpool. And to be honest, I really have been enjoying watching Liverpool kind of go through this metamorphosis with this 4-3-3 team and bring in different personnel. One thing that I was talking about with my brother during the game was Thiago was a player, and his ability to obviously find a player through a deep block is a very valuable skill, but his contribution, from set pieces or scoring goals, it's very not there. And I'm not sure, this is my question, I guess, to you guys. Is there another midfielder that you guys would want to see in this Liverpool team to help extend this current reign that it has on the Premier League and in Europe?
You know what? I think the team as it is now works this year, and I have no idea what next year will be, because it also depends on every other team, right? As Etch has said in the past, Man City seems to somehow have guys drop off, and then 2 years later they come back and they're pretty dominant in their positions, like Silva is this year. So I don't know what the future holds, but I mean, in all honesty, I thought today the first half for us was just okay. I actually didn't think it was great. I think we had a lot of the ball, which is how we play. But I guess my thing that I was surprised with Arsenal is I understood what they were trying to do. They at least have an identity. Say this, Man U has no identity. They have more skilled players, but no identity. Arsenal has an identity. They just don't do it well. Like the playing out from the back seemed like it was advantage Liverpool every time they were doing it.
I don't
I'll
know if you
say-
recall, but
Go
when
ahead.
Pep joined Man City, it took him about a season and a half to get that correct at Man City as well, the playing from the back. And they did look pretty flaky because he didn't quite have the right defenders and especially the right goalkeeper. But he's committed to playing that way, and so he insisted that his team learned that, and now it's pretty much like nature. So I suspect that my goodness, I've forgotten his name.
Mikel Arteta.
Thank you,
I'm an
Arteta.
Arsenal fan.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pep because he's pretty much a mini Pep. But anyway,
He's a Pep wannabe.
yeah, exactly. I suspect that Mikel Arteta is pretty secure in his role, and he knows he'll be there for 2 to 3 seasons more at least. And so he's playing the long game. He just wants to lay down those foundations in this relatively young Arsenal team. And unfortunately, there will be growing pains like we're experiencing in the second half today.
So, do you think the second half was a truer example of the two teams, or do you think the first half was a truer example and the second half was just Arsenal had gotten into their own heads?
I'll comment first, and then I'll pass it
go
over to you,
ahead.
Chris. Yeah, so I think it's a truer reflection of where these two teams are. However, Arsenal has certainly made a lot of progress this season, and that was reflected in the first half. But their immaturity, and also, quite frankly, the lack of experience of the coach showed in the first few minutes of the second half. I think what he should have been playing for is to leave Anfield without a drubbing, and then that way kind of prepare the team to come back to Anfield next season, knowing that every season they don't get whacked 4-5-1, right? What are your thoughts, Chris?
I'm actually going to say no to that. I think he did the right thing coming out. It's just that Liverpool had Klopp did a really good job to adjust. I'd like to say in the second half, and I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but I think this is the first game in a long time I've seen 2 coaches also get a yellow card. I'll let you guys comment on that after. But for me, it was Nuno, the left back. Normally, we're accustomed to seeing Kieran Tierney at the left back position, but he was still recovering from an injury. But the difference between Kieran Tierney, why he's the starting left back for Arsenal, and Nuno was that exact reason that led to the Jota second goal. My brother and I were discussing it. So from my perspective, when Nuno had done a good job of pressing Trent Arnold and winning back the ball against the line, he should have played the ball right away to Smith Rowe. But his inexperience and I guess more of his playing style, he's a more of a dribble first type player. And then when he dribbles into trouble, he kind of glances around looking for the pass. You could tell before he played the ball to Jota, he kind of glanced over, and I think he saw Lokonga, but he mishit the ball and then went to Jota, and Jota did what I guess another one of my friends actually said. Jota was having an okay game, maybe one of his worst performances, I'd like to say, in a Liverpool jersey, but that goal kind of saved him, and as I think one of the announcers said, it was in front of the Klopp, so let me know what you guys thought about that.
To be fair, he's played like that all season. He's a typical striker. He doesn't play exceptionally for 80 minutes, and then for 10 minutes, he'll score a couple goals. And that's all we ask of him.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the Jota thing is he's a high percentage finisher is probably the best way you can describe him. Mm-hmm. I would say Jota surprised me twice today. His goal did not surprise me. That's very expected of him. The thing that surprised me was where he didn't score, where Ramsdale stopped that one, where instead of just going to the corner, he tried to cut it back across the net, which was it doesn't seem like the type of play he makes.
It's weird because I was about to say both goals should have been reversed. So when Ben White, I believe, was the player that came across after Nuno gave the pass to Jota. So Jota was driving into the net, as we saw. Ben White kind of slid across, and we said, see ya next week. Then I thought there, and this is what my brother and I were kind of discussing, we thought Jota would shoot at that point, but then it was almost like Ramsdale. Ramsdale was thinking that too, but I felt like Ramsdale should have pounced towards Jota there, but then I guess you don't want to give up the penalty, and then obviously we all watched the game, that's why we're discussing it right now. He put it away, which was nice, but then the reverse, I almost think that Jota could have almost had time to take a touch, and I guess maybe that first goal gave him the confidence to say, you know what, I'll snap this across him. And as you could probably tell by Ramsdale's performance today, he's a bit more of a reactionary keeper. He takes his bets, he takes his odds. And to be honest, if I look at aside from the 4 goals, which were pretty much almost all unstoppable, He did really, really good, especially at Anfield.
So I'm I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I heard all the commentators and all of that, and I've read everything, and everyone's super high on Ramsdale, and I didn't see it today.
That's fine.
The first goal was stoppable. To be blunt, I mean he should have done better.
Mm-hmm.
Either getting much more power on it or stopping it altogether. The second goal for Jota, I mean,
That one I would agree with you. That's his fault. The first goal I'm going to say was an unstoppable header by Mane. Like as an attacker, the
he
key
got
is
his
to get
hand
the
on
ball
it,
into the ground.
but he got his hand on it,
Yes,
right?
which then I agree.
So and the other one is what I noticed is he gives a lot of rebounds. Like when the ball gets into him, he's I guess maybe I've been spoiled by Allison, to be
Yes, you
honest.
have.
But when a shot comes into Allison, it is rare for there to be a rebound. He just sucks it in. And the chance that Salah had, one of the chances that Jota had, like were just off of rebounds that frankly I thought they were direct enough at him that maybe he could have done something to hold on to it. I so and one of the ones, the Alexander Arnold left foot one that he blazed over the net, that's the kind of, I wouldn't say stop. That's the kind of shot that you see a lot of keepers put their hand at and then draw it back because they know it's going over. So I don't know if maybe he doesn't have an exact sense of the net, but that was going over before he touched it. So I don't know what I saw today. I wasn't super impressed. The first two goals he could have done better on. And after that, I mean, the Minamino goal, obviously, like, what are you going to do?
That one was unstoppable. The fourth goal, the same thing. I'll probably
Yeah.
say. Positioning wise, maybe to like get an odd foot, but then if I recall the goal correctly, I think there was at least two other Liverpool players in the box. So
Oh yeah, no, he had no hope on that one.
yeah,
But it's more of I would like to see him more firm on the ball in terms of keeping the ball when it gets to him, when it's a shot, make sure the rebound doesn't come out. And I don't know, I guess there's a reason Allison is who he is, because I find Allison comes out very intelligently on those breakaways or partial breaks or whatever. And I mean, we saw one right later in the game when Arsenal had what I think may have been their first shot.
that was probably their second or third. If you're talking about the Aubameyang one where Allison got the toe too, that would have been that second or third shot.
But realistically, I mean, I can't even say that Aubameyang did badly on that, because I don't know that he did anywhere to shoot. Because Matip had taken away about half the net and Allison took away the other half. Like it was well played. And I guess
the only thing he could have done, and this is just me thinking in that situation, would have been like a banana kick to like kind of get the angle over Allison's foot that was coming out, but just low enough between his hand that would have probably been right above his foot. That little gap that that you want to shoot at for a goalie where it's a bit hard, where they can't get it. That's the only thing he could have maybe have done, but I have no fault of that opportunity. At least he got on target. That's all I would ask.
He had Matip on him and he had Van Dijk on the other side. Getting the shot off, I thought it was a great shot.
Oh yeah, it
was.
I
think many other goalies would not have stopped it. But I guess I look at Ramsdale and I'm thinking, I'd like to see him. Well, I don't want to see him. I think you would like to see him doing that a bit more.
Not really. I think what we signed him in for was to help do what Allison already did. So if I'm to compare Allison versus Ramsdale, and I know some people are like, okay, why are you trying to compare the two? Allison had the opportunity to refine his game, I think, in Roma, which was great. And when he arrived at Liverpool, I would like to say he's just entered into the peak of his game. Like this is the big comparison. Like to quote another one of my friends, it was basically men versus boys. That's fair. There were a couple men out there for Arsenal, but the majority of this team's under 25, which means that in 3 to 4 years, similar to how we saw Liverpool grow to be what, was the Liverpool that won today 4-0, they're going to grow together, which is great. And I think Ramsdale's has the same ingredients that Allison has. Allison probably has more size on him and a bigger wingspan. So that's probably the thing that's frustrating me long term the most with Ramsdale is his lack of size, I'd like to say, compared to other goalkeepers. I think Alisson's 6'3", 6'4", versus Ramsdale, I think 6'1", if I recall correctly.
6'2".
6'2".
And
I just feel like when I look at him, he's a bit smaller, you know?
And last I checked, Ramsdale hasn't scored any headers.
Oh, yeah. Well, that comes when he's 30. The kid's only 23. And remember, he was playing for, Sheffield United a couple seasons ago, not too long ago. Now he's at Arsenal, where even the Arsenal fan base was even saying, like, why the hell did we sign this kid? And I guess he's kind of changed the tune.
Let's be honest, though. Do you really think that he's good enough to build a title-winning team around?
Not title winning. He can probably win us a couple FA Cups, maybe help us secure getting back into the top 4. I think the tricky part with answering that question so quickly is that we haven't seen the finished product, because this finished team, you're not going to see. This finished team won't have Aubameyang, for instance, at least in my eyes. It's not going to have Lacazette. It's probably going to have a different left winger, because I do see Smith Rowe probably transitioning into the number 10 slot or coming off the bench, or Odegaard starting there. This team is, as I said, it's still in transition.
Okay.
And
So while I hear that, what I will say is their average age is 24.7.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not young, like we've seen some of the other teams maybe. I guess my biggest concern with Arsenal, if we're going to talk about that, is after that first goal, I think they just lost it.
Oh yeah, but that's always been Arteta's team. So for instance, if we had made it at halftime, I would have said that today's game would have been a draw, very confidently. I think there's maybe been one game in Arteta's reign where they were tied or they were in a winning position at halftime, and they've gone on to lost the game. The second you guys scored at the 39th minute, I knew it was kind of game over. And I go back to the example that we were discussing earlier in the podcast with Nuno and the giveaway pass to Jota. That for me was like, okay, this is game over. Because I've been a very firm person about this, and Cheta can even remember me saying this from all the YouTube videos I've done. The most important goal in any soccer match is the second goal. If Arsenal had scored the second goal, I'm not saying Liverpool would have been nervous, but there would have been more belief in the Arsenal players and the Arsenal fans, and we would have probably had an exciting second half. But because Liverpool got that goal 5-10 minutes in, as my brother said, Arsenal had to come out of their shell. They have to play more. They can't count on this defensive solidity that they were doing.
No, but that was my point at the start. They don't, right? It's only 1-0, right? And that's where I think Arteta showed his inexperience. It's only 1-0. Your team has done quite well to contain Liverpool to just one goal. Come into the second half, play the exact same way, and then keep it 1-0 until 75 minutes, and then see what happens.
Yeah, no, right. and I'm agreeing with you there. It's just my thing was it was a player mistake that cost the system. Like I don't want to be harsh, but you replace Nuno with Kieran Tierney in that situation. Tierney has the higher level of intelligence to play a better ball.
But it wasn't just that. They started the second half with, we could have scored 3 goals before we scored that second goal.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be clear. Right?
It's true. I like in all honesty, I think I'm agreeing here. I think Arsenal did well. I'm agreeing with you. Arsenal did well in that they contained them in the first half. I think you keep running that and see if you can frustrate Liverpool and maybe snag a goal. And if not, then you open up at 75 or 80 minutes.
Because that's what Brighton did.
That's what everybody did against us last year.
Yeah.
And we
get something out of Anfield.
Like 8 straight games.
But that's football, though. Like, my thing here, I'm going to ask you two, as Liverpool fans, do you expect Liverpool to dominate a game from 0 minutes to full time, like the whole game, without the other team having a sniff of a chance at the at Alisson? Well,
I think the thing is, there's no such thing as a team never having a sniff of a chance. That's extremely rare.
Yeah.
What the way Liverpool plays is. And this is, I'm not anybody's secret, is basically we play a high line, we push everybody up, we keep 2 center backs, top-notch center backs, sometimes even 1, and we will give you a handful of chances a game. Statistically, you don't score every chance you get. Last year, everyone was scoring every chance they got, and we were losing.
Look, I can explain that
it's
though.
not happening that. Like Lacazette did a great job, and it was stopped because statistically, that's not going to go in most of the time. So if we had given up like 3 or 4 of those breakaways, maybe Arsenal get 1 goal out of it. That still wouldn't be enough. And that's the game plan for Liverpool every game out.
Oh, well said. Like for me, last season, because of the pandemic, I've been just doing binging and just learning tactics and such. I think the one thing that I think you guys know this, that I'm not sure if I pointed it out last time I was on, but with the lack of not having a Van Dijk, Liverpool's high press or pinch up the field was 10, I guess, like yards back, which that makes a big difference. And that's why I think some teams were able to exploit you guys during last season's it wasn't your ideal season, I know, for last season, versus like almost now to compare to what I guess is almost become your arch rivals in this era of the Premier League, City. Now they don't have an Aguero-like striker. Now they're struggling. It's almost like they're playing an incomplete system now versus last season. You guys were playing an incomplete system and they were functioning in the way that they were and adapting. So I do like the dynamic I'm seeing at the top, and I'm liking that with a full strength Liverpool properly this year, that Liverpool is actually showing their colors and not arriving at that stage where some fans would say, like, are they getting too old? Is this the time where we blow up the project and, like, you know, start to bring in the new players and such? So it's good.
So, I mean, coming to that, which is a good point, we saw the Jota assist to Mane, the header to Mane that gave Salah his goal. I mean, have we seen a nicer assist from, or a nicer link-up play from Firmino? Is Jota starting to come into his own in that role, or is this just a case of he got lucky on a header?
No, I think he's a much different player than Firmino. With Firmino, he almost plays like a slow number 10 who he will still try to make the link-up play. However, he won't always look for the immediate pass. He will try to take an extra. Well, he takes an extra touch when he shouldn't have to, because I think maybe he wants to think about what he's going to do next. But with Jota, he's more instinctive.
You see, the funny thing was I actually was watching a video on Bobby, and apparently he takes very high volume shots, but they're very few. So like when he does choose to shoot, instead of, as you just described each other, like to pass the ball to, you know, a Mane or Salah or the overlapping fullback, it's usually on target. And sometimes it usually does result in a goal. But if I recall, I think he got like I think it was a hat trick or a brace, but they were pretty much like tap-ins.
I think it's a hat trick. But again,
the keyword there is you said if he decides to shoot. Right.
Yes.
So yeah.
But you know what I think the big thing is? The big thing is Jota has changed Firmino's game, because Firmino is starting to remember. Like, Firmino scored 4 years ago, he actually knew how to score. Then he fell in love with this facilitator, link up, Bobby is the heart of our team role, and he totally stopped playing to score. And I think with Jota coming back, and frankly Jota impressing in his cameos so much, I think Firmino realized I need to start getting some goals too. And yeah, I think he got the hat trick earlier in the year. Again, I wish I would see it more, but I think we look at it as Jota's the better scorer, Firmino's the better link up. But I don't know, that goal that Salah scored, that was just I don't know, I guess you're saying it's a very instinctive play. I don't know, that was truly brilliant. Not just the weight on the ball and all of that, but actually seeing that develop.
I agree. Yeah, it wasn't a fluke for sure. He knew what he was doing, and he knew exactly how much he had to cushion the header, or a combination of cushioning and power.
No, honestly, like, I don't know what else I guess to say about this Liverpool team, except like when I look at that front three, let's say a season or two ago, I would never have imagined that Jota would be the type of player to break into it. Maybe we would have said Origi back then. Maybe.
Don't start with Origi.
Yeah,
I did. But
let's not even.
But the main point is, at least Klopp now, and I want to give him his praise here. at least now he has an understanding of how to set up his team differently, especially with that front three. Because before, you used to have like a workman like three midfield behind and just give the ball to that front three and let them do their magic. Versus now, and this is where I'm a bit interested as a football fan just in general, not an Arsenal fan, but just a football fan in general, how Klopp addresses and how he tries to evolve that midfield three. Because Thiago was supposed to be that, like trying to help you guys. And I know you guys have lost a certain player, Genie, that my brother, the second I mentioned him, like, I want that guy back. I just want that guy back. Why did he go to PSG?
You know what? I think losing Genie was part of the evolution of the Liverpool midfield, because the Liverpool midfield has always been the engine room.
Yes.
And all they do is hold the ball and win the ball back. But I think what we're seeing this year is we're seeing, you're asking about what's the next evolution. I think we saw it today, which is the midfield was part of pressing and winning the ball back, but was also part of creating chances and moving the ball forward. So just a simple workman-like midfield, I think, is gone. I don't see a lot of players on Liverpool right now who are workman-like Genie was. Mm-hmm. I think everybody who is in that midfield, Fabinho included, is a threat in some fashion or another going forward.
Oh, yeah.
And we also have to give a special mention to our fullbacks, because as much as, and I know we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but as much as I like Andy Robertson, it's been a while since I've seen a game with Liverpool attacking through the wings like they used to, taking the pressure off the front three and the midfielders. So with Tsimikas, his crossing accuracy, his persistence in defense, and just his overall tenacity, it's really refreshing, and it just gives the whole team a lift. And
I was just about to ask about that.
He's conceded a goal in all the games he's played this season.
Wow. So is he from your academy, or was he like a signing
from Greek? We bought him from a Greek team, right?
Olympiacos. Yeah, we got him last season.
Yeah,
but
I like him
because of the season we had. Klopp didn't want to take any chances bringing him into the team. So
and I think he was injured at the beginning of the year during training, preseason training. Then he was injured at the start of the season.
He got COVID,
and by the time he was basically ready to start getting in, it was just mid-season, and I don't think Klopp was gonna risk it. So he was just going with who he knew, and he played Robbo, I don't know, every single game plus 50 more. So I don't know. I'm with you. I thought Tsimikas was better than Robertson has been lately. Was Robertson better 3-4 years ago? Maybe. But today, I don't know. I saw a lot more today coming down that wing.
Yeah, no, I liked him at left back for you guys a lot. I was about to ask the question, because I kind of compare your left back situation to the same thing that Arsenal has with Kieran Tierney and Nuno. And as we probably saw here today, these backup left backs, obviously, Nuno doesn't earn the spot, I'd like to say, to start for Arsenal, in my opinion. He did a respectable job, I'd like to say. But system-wise, I really like the Greek kid. He's actually pretty good for you guys. Like, I'm just reading it here. He was quite comfortable on the ball, 80%. Not too bad. He progressed well. Obviously, he's not Trent Arnold with the 2 assists that he was able to conjure up today, but
here's what I'm going to go with. Trent's numbers are inflated, because think about it. Trent's assist, the first goal, that was a set play.
That's fair.
And frankly, if you ask me, I would rather have Tsimikas on the ball for a set play. I would rather have him on the ball for a corner. If you watch his corners, you watch his set plays. They're his crosses, passes, whatever you want to call them on those plays, are much more direct. They're not as loopy. They're much flatter, much harder, and they're more pinpoint.
So are you saying that Trent's a bit, what's the word that I'm looking for, overrated?
No, I'm saying Tsimikas is underrated.
That's a fair shout. I can give you that.
Like, if you go back and you look at some of the corners that Tsimikas has been given, and when they score, and I'm thinking of a game earlier this season, Etch, maybe you remember which one, the one where he put it on the near man was coming across and he was just supposed to bump it into the path and Mane hit it at the back of the net.
Right.
And that was clearly a play that is only works, like a drawn up play that only works if the ball is hit hard, fast into the exact spot. And I don't like Arnold is very good in getting the ball off very quickly and generally fairly accurately. But I find Tsimikas is actually a more guaranteed in that way. So I think in the next year or so, once Robbo starts maybe, falling back down the pecking order and you see Tsimikas game in, game out, I think you'll start seeing what he can do and he might take over some of these set plays.
Okay. That's actually a good show. I'm looking at this. Tsimikas 25. He's on the up, which is good. And to be honest, I think especially when you have like a kind of a set starting 11 in your head, I think it's good to have players like Tsimikas that actually kind of push some of the starting players to be better.
Absolutely.
And then, there's nothing wrong with healthy competition, especially with how big and how many competitions that Liverpool's in during the season. So
I don't know. I agree with you generally, but I feel bad for Robertson because healthy competition will push a players to unlock their potential.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Robertson has any more potential.
That's fine.
He's all hustle and all heart, and I give him that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
if we can push him to regain that consistency, I think that'll be good.
Well, what more would you want from Robertson? You want him to get back to the level that, by the sounds of it, that he hasn't been performing at, let's say, for maybe the last season and a bit.
He hasn't been horrible, but he's not really providing a huge threat down that wing.
He's just tired. He's just fatigued. He hasn't had a proper time off because even the international breaks, he plays like 3 games for Scotland, and he's their captain, right?
And he's the main guy.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So I'm hoping that Klopp will just leave him on the bench. I know he has a minor injury. Just keep him on the bench for the next, I don't know, maybe the month of December, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, December is always a crazy month, especially with what you guys have. What, Champions League still? Are you guys still in the Carabao Cup, if I recall correctly?
Yeah, we are.
So Carabao Cup games. You guys are going to obviously have Premier League. Then we have Boxing Day, and then FA Cup starts.
Well, but the benefit for us on the Champions League is we've already won our group. So the big question is now, I guess.
What's a group? I don't know what this group thing is. You're gonna have to explain this to me. I just only know the Premier League.
Is for the top teams in the world. Arsenal may one day be there. Yeah,
we're playing 4 to 5 years from now. Don't worry, I gave you that one.
You know what? I truly wonder. Like, what is the time range for Arsenal?
3 to 4 years.
Still,
to do what? To challenge for top 4 or for the title?
For the title, I'll say 3 to 4 years. For top 4, I would like to say either this season would be above expectation or next season would be expected.
I think I agree with that.
That's realistic because you need to consider City. So let's say fast forward the end of the season. Let's say Liverpool wins it because I'm on a Liverpool podcast, so I'm just going to say it. You guys win it. Let's say City maybe wins it next year. The following year, maybe both respective teams kind of fall off. That Chelsea team peaks. I don't know about United. I hope it crashes and burns or whatever the hell that they're trying to do over there. Tottenham, I have no idea where they are. Maybe you have West Ham. Maybe you have Leicester sort out their stuff, or maybe they drop off. By then, at that point, a lot of these players that I was reading off here that they're 22, 23, 24, they're now 26, 27, 28, hitting their peak and hitting their prowess. And if Arsenal continue to do good recruitment like they did, this past summer, basically buying a whole new back line, I think that they should at least contend.
Well, here's the thing:
guaranteed in the Premier League.
You forgot one team in there, which is Newcastle.
Oh, they'll bounce back from the Championship maybe by then.
Oh, my friend, they will be buying in January, and they will not be going down to the Championship. Let me tell you.
I don't know. Because here's my thing. You need the right type of manager. You need the right type of system to integrate those players in. Like, what's the magic number we used to say? It's like 35 points, I think. Can they get it? Yeah, but this is the Premier League. We gotta remember where a lot of these teams, like 6 to 10 teams, they're quite hard to beat unless you have a very well built squad like Liverpool and Manchester City do.
I will say that it may, because the owners have now bought Newcastle. They're not going anywhere. They will have money for the rest of eternity, right? So it may work out better for them in the long run if they do go down. and then
No.
actually rebuild it from the very ground up. Because if you
I
look at Man City,
get it, because a lot of us are accustomed to like, oh, like for instance, I think back to like when Chelsea got bought by Abramovich back in like I think it was 04, 05 or whatever, and like they finished, I think it was like fifth or they finished fourth or something, and then
no,
basically like they won. Was it? Or
no,
was it 03, 04?
yeah, it was 0304, and then they finished third that season.
Mm-hmm.
Then he bought Chelsea, and then they finished fourth, I think, the next
But
season.
usually the
And then they won
narrative
every one
is
after that.
whether it's in sports or in your video game, when you get a lot of money, you're usually going to be guaranteed success, but that success isn't guaranteed right away.
No, but look at Man City, right? It took them about 5 seasons before they actually started becoming a serious team.
Well, that's
Prior to
because
that-
they needed an identity, and
Exactly,
that's the thing I don't see at Newcastle right now.
and that's my point. That's kind of the point I was trying to make, that
Mm-hmm.
part of building that identity may be to create the narrative of being relegated, rebuilding from the ground up, and then kind of creating an identity around that, almost like the phoenix that rises from the ashes. Rather than just now they have all this money, they're just buying all these random players that don't quite fit the template, but because they have money,
some players, like one former Arsenal player, and then I'll get to another former Arsenal player that played for Liverpool, or that's still playing for Liverpool right now. Aaron Ramsey was apparently linked with Newcastle, and that's another example of a player that's like in his like 30s, like is bringing like a player like Ramsey or like a Coutinho for someone with like Barcelona, for instance. Is that going to change around Newcastle? Not really. Like James Rodriguez went to Everton. Did he really set Everton alight? Not really. So that's what I mean by I can see Newcastle going down, and actually that would be a great signing actually for you guys to get like Saint Maximum maybe. That'd be a great signing actually, because for me, and I'm kind of jumping around all over the place for you guys, I apologize for this, but I think you guys need to find at the summer another player to enter into that front three. But I think it's really hard to find like another Jota level like player that's willing to wait a season or two to get integrated into that front three that you guys currently have. But the other player I was going to mention to bring it back, I guess, back to normal was Oxlade-Chamberlain. How did you guys think he did today?
He was there.
That's a good answer.
I don't know if I can say any more than that.
I appreciate that.
Ox is an enigma. I don't know what his position is, but he's certainly not a midfielder, and he's certainly not a midfielder the way Klopp expects his midfielders to play. He's a very intelligent person off the field, but on the field he has very low footballing IQ.
I feel like Oxlade-Chamberlain's that type of player that was that came out during that transition of football where we kind of went from like naturally talented players individually to naturally talented players that kind of get like fostered up in like a system. Like when you look at, for instance, one player for Arsenal like Saka, you can tell that he kind of came through the academy. He's been educated correctly to do that, but he lacks that like type of X factor that you would see of like players that like, you know, when you would hear of like these talented dribblers like a Ronaldinho and that type of stuff, like they played in the cage or they played on the streets and that type of stuff to kind of do that little bit extra. It's almost like academy produce kind of takes away that wow factor with some players. They just execute things just so efficiently, almost like robotically. And I kind of feel Oxlade-Chamberlain is of that era of where like he practiced his dribbling out wide. It's not as polished, maybe, I guess. And when it comes to trying to do that within a system, for instance, where you got to be able to know how to execute a pass 10 yards automatically, I just feel like that's just not in him intelligently.
Well, I mean, as an idea, you take a look at Ox and Thiago. So Thiago had twice as many touches as Ox and lost the ball half as much.
Yeah.
So that's really all you need to know. Now, I know people will say, "Oh, look, he won more duels," but Ox lost that ball, so he had to win it back. So that's not really a fair one. And then the other one is Thiago actually didn't foul anyone today, which is kind of shocking, seeing as how he started his Liverpool career with fouling everyone and flirting with the red every single game. But Thiago had no fouls and Ox had 2. So, I mean, I look at it and it's, again, not that I'm saying Ox should play at the level of Thiago or be like Thiago, but the drop off is, I mean, huge.
But one player went through one of the best academies that we've seen produce players in the past, like, 10, 15 years. The other one, he came through England's best academy at that time with, players like Gareth Bale, for instance.
But I'm not disagreeing. I guess the thing is,
you know what? Actually, that's a good point, though, because if you look at Southampton's academy, Theo Walcott, Gareth Bale, Ox, where are they now? Like, what kind of players?
The best one that you mentioned the other there was Gareth Bale. But besides that, and my brother and I were actually talking about that.
No, but even Gareth Bale. So he started as a left back, and he just couldn't be turned into a proper left back because he had too much attacking instinct and not enough defensive discipline, right? So he kind of turned into this hybrid of a winger / forward, and it's kind of the same thing with Ox. He has all the ability and skill in the world, but there's no. It's like he hasn't been brought up to play in a rigid system. To your points, so I'm kind of agreeing with both of you.
Two things. One is, and it's going to be harsh. Super don't care what he learned or how he came up. He's not delivering on the pitch. But two is, I very much agree, and I think that's a fundamental flaw of English soccer, because look at the English national team. They drop a guy like Alexander-Arnold because, well, he could be better defensively. Or maybe we should put him in midfield. And it's like, really? Because kind of everyone on the planet agrees he's the best at his position, but the English game is like, no, we're smarter than everybody else. But look who's doing well in the English league. You have what English coach is doing well in the English league, right? You're not. It's the English game is. Sorry,
Graham Potter, maybe.
But the point is, I feel like the game has the game of football has changed, and the English system, the English coaches, the English development hasn't. And Ox is a great example of it.
Ox was an example for me of the old system. I'd like to say that the England setup and their program, I think, has changed when you're looking at players coming through, like Phil Foden, for instance, Mason Mount, and Saka, for instance. I think that is a proper reflection of players that have come through. Like, one of the saddest things, actually, I was reading a couple weeks ago was Jack Wilshere, for instance. He's 30. He used to be the poster child of that generation that you just mentioned with Oxlade-Chamberlain, and he can't even find a club. Like, Arsenal had to take him back in to go get his coaching badges because, like, he just can't. Like, he had to get interviewed by, I think, David Ornstein on The Athletic to basically do the sympathy interview. Basically,
pretty incredible what happened to Jack Wilshere.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, injuries and everything else, but when I go back to the Thiago thing and coming through Barcelona, for instance, you can tell that as well. Barcelona obviously captivated everyone's mind, and it kind of went from what England was kind of known for, which was out wide and your target men, to players in the engine room and being able to pass 5-10 yard passes and have close control. And I think England is now catching up with that, with what players are emerging. Like, we haven't produced a player that's like Thiago. Like, I think the closest thing that you have to that, and this is probably even still a reach, but it's like, I think it's Declan Rice is his name, or Kevin Phillips at Leeds. That's the closest. But then if I ask you, would you rather those two players or Thiago? I know most of you guys are going to say Thiago, unless like you're a diehard England fan and you're like, well, he's at Thiago's level, but he's not. Let's be honest. But there's steps in the right direction. They just haven't produced in the right positions. Because it's the same thing if you look at like the Spain setup. They haven't really been able to replicate a forward like a David Villa or Fernando Torres yet. But in every other position, they kind of have been able to produce a decent caliber player or a really, really good player. So, like, I think that's just how some nations come up. Like, not every nation can be like France and produce world-class players in every position.
So, speaking of players, let's
go to man of the match.
Yeah.
But
so here's a question before that, which would it surprise you to know? Would it surprise you to know that Arsenal actually won more duels than Liverpool today?
Yes,
50 to 44.
That would, but the way how this defense is set up, I'm also not surprised.
I wonder how many of those were Salah trying to dribble through 6 men.
Oh,
Yeah.
my brother was pissed off about that. Before the man of the match, and I apologize for derailing. I need to ask you guys actually this question. Does Salah frustrate you guys when he's doing that type of dribble where he's trying to dribble at the guys since he scored those 2 great goals that were almost identical?
You know what it is? He was doing that last year, and he's been doing that for a long time. I think it worked for him for like a year when he got all those goals in that year, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. And he kind of stuck with that. And when he's, as Klopp would say, in a moment, it works. When he's not in a moment, it doesn't work. And right now he's in a moment where he is scoring a lot of those. But really what it comes down to is he's a volume guy, which is he'll get you a goal a game like he's doing now, but he needs to lose the ball 10 times at other points in the game. That's just how his game goes. And we either make peace with that, which I have yet to make peace with, or like Etch, he's made peace with it and he's okay because we get that goal a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of man of the match, I don't know. Are we going to all go with Minamino, obviously? Yes? No?
Maybe.
Yeah, so,
In his defense, he touched the ball 9 times in the game and did get a goal.
I'm proud of him. I'm going to go with Fabinho. I just like my holding midfielders. I think he did a really good job in that battle today of Fabinho versus Thomas Partey. He did a really good job of shielding, obviously, the attack for Liverpool to kind of stifle out whatever Arsenal attack. I think he would have probably been working a bit more if Arsenal had 2 proper outlets. This was the one point I forgot to, highlight before. But Saka and Aubameyang were the only outlets. And this actually is a credit to Trent. Trent is at least quicker than Smith Rowe. So if Arsenal were ever to try to build up on Trent's side when he's pressing up high, as you guys were explaining with your system, I found that Arsenal couldn't play a proper outlet ball on the left side unless it was the left back Nuno that was overlapping, which was non-existent. So for the most part, that kind of forced Arsenal to play lopsided. And obviously, if you can cut the field into 1/3 or 2/3 in this case, it's much easier for a holding midfielder to clean up the job. And Fabinho really did a good job of doing that for you guys.
I don't know. For me, I don't know. I liked Mane today. I thought he worked hard. I thought he worked well. Other than that yellow, which was wildly unnecessary and legitimately totally a yellow. He's been getting screwed on calls left, right, and center. But today he actually drew 5 fouls, which good for him. But that yellow was just silly. I thought he did very well. He scored the goal and he was involved in the play a lot. Like, that's what I'll say. He won 10 of 16 duels. And he was fouled 5 times. Like, he was in there and he created a lot. And I think he worried them a lot. Salah, by comparison, had 1 of 10 duels won. So, Salah gets the glory, but Mane definitely, put in a good workman effort today. I don't know, Etch, what are you thinking?
yeah, nobody really stands out. I was going to go for Trent, but I can't even articulate why, except for he had a normal Trent performance. And whenever he has a normal Trent performance, we always win. And so I'm more than happy for him to be my man of the match every single match because it means that Liverpool won.
Yeah, which is a good thing. I guess for Arsenal, who's coming up next for you guys?
We are playing Newcastle next, that money-hungry team that you were just saying that's going to stay up, but I think they have a possibility of going down.
They might if they... You know what? In all honesty, and I was going to say it as a joke, but now it's not. I genuinely hope you guys can get it back together because sometimes a loss like this can kind of stick with you for a week or two. And hopefully you guys, Arsenal players are not still thinking about this drubbing at Anfield. I hope that they've gotten it out of their system and beat Newcastle properly the way they should. For Liverpool, we're going to go up against, I don't know, who is it? Porto, whoever needs to beat us, and we don't need to win. So that's always...
Porto, and then we play Southampton at home again, which would be good.
Ooh, that's nice.
Southampton, and then December 1st, looking ahead for you guys. You guys
Everton
got the
home.
Everton.
Everton away, and then Wolves away. So, I mean, it'll be an interesting week. I don't know. Does Klopp play first team, or does he play the scrubs in Porto?
He has to play his bench. because we were kind of literally down to bare bones, and this is a nothing game, and I don't think we're going to lose to Porto at home. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, even if we play the bench, you also have to keep in mind our center back bench is Konate and Gomez.
Exactly.
So that's a pretty good center half pairing to quote unquote throw in there.
And he can still play Allison too.
Oh yeah, Allison will play, and so you're solid at the back, and we should be able to take it to Porto no matter who we have. But you're right. I mean, the bench, the squad is just too thin right now to risk any players. And then save them all for the big game at Southampton next week and try to make it into December on a winning roll.
Actually, yeah, that's my actual final question. How do you think Klopp is going to address squad rotation versus last season to this season? Because this time last season, everyone else, I think you guys were calling for a new center back, if I recalled. And Fabinho, my man of the match, wasn't playing in his position as holding midfielder, but he's playing center back, I recall. It was like him and Henderson, I think, was your center back pairing at that time.
They both sucked. Sorry, was that the question?
No, I'm just saying, like, the question is exactly, is Klopp doing a much better job of managing the squad in a game-to-game basis, considering the schedule that you guys have this season versus last season? Because he has, I guess, better personnel available, I guess, now with Van Dijk back?
I mean,
or are you still seeing the same thing from last season where he's risking certain players and he should be rotating more?
He's risking certain players in that I think Alexander-Arnold's probably playing too much. Neko should be in there. Tsimikas has shown well enough for Robbo to take some time. But I mean, we have 4 center backs that frankly I think are better than most starting center backs in the EPL. So he doesn't have to worry about changing your back line and suffering, because if he puts in Tsimikas or Robbo, you're talking still a world-class player. If he puts in Gomez and Konate, you're talking about world-class players. Hopefully he drops Alexander-Arnold, so brings in Neko, and that's literally the only non-world-class player you have on your back line. So I think, it's a lot easier to manage your players when everybody's healthy and when you're winning. Because last year, I don't know if you recall, we had to win games. This year, we don't. This year, the Champions League games, we can lose the next 2 and it makes no difference except for the money that we'd get from a win. So I do anticipate him changing players. And I think we might get to see the Champions League debut for one of the younger guys, a Gordon, or I don't know. Do you think he'll go that far, Etch, or will he still stick with his regulars?
I think Gordon will definitely be on the bench, and I'm sure he'll have a part to play because in the Champions League you can make 5 subs, right? So, yeah. Even if no matter what the score is, if we're down by 3 goals, he'll bring him on. If we're up by 3 goals, he'll bring him on. If we're behind chasing, he'll bring him on in the second half. So I think for sure he's going to play.
So we're now going to be treating Champions League the next 2 games at least like we treat the Carabao Cup, and so it'll make for a fun midweek.
Hey, Arsenal's trying to win that. Don't talk down on that cup.
Yeah, it's funny because Klopp coaches those games, and you can see that he's into it, and then you can see after the final whistle, once we've won, he's almost like upset at himself for having tried so hard. But I take the point. That's Arsenal's big midweek stuff. We're in a little different case. But either way, on to a new week, and hopefully, Southampton for us and Newcastle for you guys. Hopefully we can both get the wins.
For more stories, analysis, and articles, go to theforensiccop.com website.